Are you still watching unsubbed? Subscribe, will you? Alright, welcome back. This has been a long time between the last video and this one, and this is another plugin development video. We're kind of going to pick up right where we left off with this YouTube API importer. Last time we were in here, I generated a key. I selected a YouTube channel. I just chose Motor Trend, and because I'm a big fan of like the roadkill shows and all that, so I just decided to go with them because they post new stuff all the time. As you can see, even when I just loaded into this website or this example, it already pulled their most recent 5 videos out and their pictures and all that. And we're gonna look at the code, and if you don't know how we did this, go to the last video. It's actually pretty simple. Anyway, just a quick side note, subscriber actually commented and brought up a good point about me using Bootstrap, using it as an enqueue function inside of the includes the plugin name, where I actually enqueued it into the whole system in the styles. I put it there, and they brought up a good point about this, saying that it actually applies it site-wide in the admin side. That's actually a good point, and it does import it site-wide. And so if you wanted to do it only on the pages of our plugin, I just wanted to cover that real fast. As you know, the WordPress Boilerplate plugin creates partials pages for each of our callbacks, or that's like a way that they like to do it. It's really similar to like how Laravel does its blade system, kind of. Anyway, in the callbacks page, this is the callback page for our general settings. And what you do is you would just add it here. This is one way you could do that, to call to that Bootstrap. You could put it inside of this page if you wanted to, and you could do it in each of your partials pages versus trying to do it site-wide. So that's a good point, and if you wanted to do it that way, you could do it that way. I'm going to leave it site-wide for now, but I just wanted to bring that up because it's important. Alright, so last time we ran into a small issue. Let me explain a really short issue with the YouTube API, and that is you have a data cap. Just like every API you use, if you're a free user, you have a data cap. And particularly with YouTube, I think it's like 1,000 a day or something, which you'll say, man, I'll never cap that. Well, you are not so sure about that. Also, a lot of times API calls get made where it has a lot more calls to the API than you anticipated, meaning sometimes, even though you think you're only making one call, you're actually making multiple requests, or you can be. I've made this mistake in the past a lot, because everybody makes mistakes when they're new. And also, every time you're going into new APIs and you've never programmed in them before, a lot of times you can get confused. So let's just be clear, 1,000 is not a good enough cap, and I don't want any cap, right? You don't want a cap on people requesting your videos. Well, how do we sidestep this issue? There's a good way to do that, which is we can use WordPress's built-in custom post types. And there's a lot of videos on this, but I'm just going to cover it quickly in this series so that you can get an idea. I'm not going to go super in depth on all the arguments you can pass to it and all the options and all that kind of stuff. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to show you how we can create a custom post type, and then we can save the videos, all of the information we get from YouTube, into a custom post type, and then we can call to those custom post types and display them any way we want in the front end of our site. We're going to create different ways for the user to want to. We're going to do a lot of cool options with it. But anyway, let's just get into it real quick because I want to keep this one short in 10 minutes. There's going to be a few in this series. So first things first, we're in the includes. If we put all these folders down, we're in the includes. In the WP10 test, that's like what I called my plugin. Yours would be whatever your name is. And this is the stuff we had done so far, defining our general settings, defining a custom footer, some other stuff. Anyway, what we're actually going to do here is we're going to go just like this. And a lot of this code, I'm going to type the small sections, but the bigger sections I'm just going to put in what I've already written so that this video can move faster, because it's kind of boring sitting sometimes watching somebody type all the code out. Okay, so we're going to be hooking into the init function inside of WordPress. We're going to be calling to our plugin admin class. That's where we want to get the function from, and this function is going to be called custom YouTube API. That's what we're going to call it for registering our custom post type. We could call it post type or whatever. So that's in there now, and we probably should have commented it right here, which I'll do that right now. Creates a custom post type to hold our videos. Okay, so now this is what it's going to do. It's going to add that action. It's going to hook in on the initialization. It's going to call to the admin class, which is inside your admin, and it's your right here. Your class. Just pull the partials closer. It's right there, and I have it open right here. And it's going to look for this function. So if we go back into our administrative over here, we can create that new. We can create that brand new function. Let's just drop a few new lines here. Let's just make it a public function, even though we could make it private. Just going to roll it as a public function. like I keep saying, guys, too, my coding specifically, I'm not trying to be like super precise about all the coding. I would be if this was an application I was rolling out for a customer or something like that. But in this case, I just kind of want to do what's the easiest and quickest. Custom YouTube API. And if you want to be for sure about this, you'd want to copy and paste it from where we actually did it over here. You'd actually want to take this directly, and that way there won't be any problems. Well, you don't want that whole line. Okay, I actually got that whole line. Okay, you'd want to take this directly and just put it right on top of there. Okay. So now we're going to say this function creates our custom post type for videos. Okay. One thing I wanted to mention too is that we're going to be adding metadata. That's how you do this. Or one way to do this is you create a custom post type, insert metadata. The metadata is all of the YouTube information, and then we can access those post types later. Alright, so here's where we create our custom post types. And I'm going to put in some code here and then go through what it does. Alright, so this is some code that I kind of compiled, and then I went ahead and changed it for my own needs. And this is a function that goes ahead and creates a new post type for WordPress, for a custom post type. So let's just quickly run through. When you're creating a new post type inside of WordPress, you have to have it, the argument takes labels, and then it takes an arguments array, and then in the end we register those. And actually the labels get inputted into the arguments array. We just called it args. We can call it whatever we want, and then we can pass it into the register post type where it asks for the name of the post type and the args. But let's go through it a little quickly so you can kind of get an idea of what it's doing. Okay, I'm sorry, that's me saving religiously everything because I've had so many computers shut off on me in the middle of working on stuff. Alright, so in the labels array, you can see there's already quite a few in here. I went ahead and added a lot of the arguments, even if I don't necessarily need them, so you can get an idea. And I'll include a link in the description to the WordPress documentation on custom post types, so you can kind of see what each of these things do more in depth. So the first one is the name. This is the name of the, this is the post type general name. So we're going to call them YouTube videos. Then we have the singular name, which is a YouTube video. The menu name, YouTube video. Parent video, this is if it has a parent item, which in our case, this is if it's hierarchical, but ours is not going to be. All items is just all videos. View item, view videos. These are the buttons you can click inside of WordPress, is where a lot of this stuff is asking you what you want it to say. Like when it says add new to a post type. This is if the user, if we decided to let them add them through the actual sidebar. Like when you create a new post type, you'll notice a lot of times when you install plugins and themes, it'll add like its own like builder contact. See that? That's like a custom post type. It's similar to post. And then a lot of times they do that with portfolios. They do that with forms. Like there's so many plugins that use the custom post types, and it just adds its own page to the side where you can add new. In this case, we're not going to do that. We're actually going to add these programmatically to our database and then call them later. So that's not going to really apply to us. But I just went ahead and put all this information in so you could see that that's how it goes about it, where it creates the menus and it creates the graphical side on the administrative side for what everything says. So these are the parameters, and then this is what you want them to say. In our case, like I said, I put this in purely so you can see what the argument or the labels array looks like. And if you need to pause it and look at it more in depth, that's fine too. Okay, and so it's pretty straightforward. It's just the labels for this particular custom post. And now we get into more of the meat, which is the actual arguments we're going to pass in. The label, I'm going to call it WP10Y vids. This is very custom for us. The description, this is the description of what this post type is. The labels, that's our labels array above for all of the labels it needs. And then who supports in the post editor. Basically, this is what it supports when the person goes into the post editor. If we had it publicly accessible on the front end of our site, somebody could go into this and then it would have all these fields available. And this is where you can modify like ability for somebody to do comments, thumbnails, revisions, custom fields, etc. You can set that here and remove things you don't want to show them, and then things you want to be able to be editable. Taxonomy, I'm not really too particular about the taxonomy. I just put genres in there. That's because this code was actually being called off of a movie's example, and it was just somebody had done a really good job writing it, so it made no sense for me to write it again. But in this particular case, I've just left that as it was. I actually am thinking about pulling it out because I don't need the taxonomy. And then, like I was talking about, hierarchical is like pages, if they can have parent and child items inside of posts. But in this case, that's going to be false for us. Public, this is if it shows publicly. In this case, we say true. And actually, you know what? This is a good time to pull up the documentation so I can kind of just go through that with you real fast. This link will be in the description. Okay, so here's where it kind of breaks down everything for us as far as public. Whether a post type is intended for use publicly either via the admin interface or by front-end users. So in our particular case, this post type, we don't really want it to be accessible to front-end users because it's not really a post they can go to particularly. It's just going to be a video that displays, and then we're going to actually have it open in a lightbox, I think. So, and then we have hierarchical. Whether the post type is hierarchical, that for us is definitely false. Exclude from search. We definitely want this to be excluded from search. We don't want people to search up these videos. And so we would probably say true to this, right? Because these are going, like I said, these are only going to be called from our plugin where we ask them to be with like via shortcode or something like that. So we don't want users to be able to search up the videos. And we could change that if we wanted to allow them to search through them, but in this case, no. Publicly queryable. This is for the front end for post types as part of a parse request. I don't think we're going to leave it publicly queryable, but I'm not 100% sure yet. UI, whether you want to generate and allow for UI managing for this type of item. In our case, it's going to be false. We don't want them to be able to access it from the sidebar. Show and menu. We don't need this to happen either. Remember, guys, what I'm saying is that all this stuff is going to be put in programmatically, and you're going to see that in the next video. I'm going to create a short piece of code on this page that takes the most recent 5 videos, programmatically puts them in our database, and then I can show you how we can call to the information. Show an admin bar, no. Show and rest, nope, we don't need that. See, there's a lot of the stuff that's not even in mind, right? I just was showing you an example of all this stuff, and like I said, I like the ones that were built into this, and so I just kind of wanted to show, like, can export, nah, we wouldn't want it to be exportable. The menu position, this is where it is on your menu, how high up and down it would be on your side menu here, but in our case, like I said, it's not going to be accessible. So in our case, like show UI, we would say false. We don't want it to show in the UI. Show in menu, false. We don't want it to show in the menu either. So that's why I kind of said that the labels in our case are a little redundant. So anyway, so when we've done this and we've gone through and we've created our arguments array, and like I said, you want to make yours look very similar to this. And if you go look, like I said, there's a million videos and examples on how to make these, but in its most basic form, you have to create a function, you have to give it its labels, you have to give it its arguments, and then you have to call the register post type, and this is the name. Your post type is going to be accessible in the database when we're calling to it, so it's very important to remember that, and that it's unique, and then it takes the arguments. And what I'm probably going to do is post, I'm thinking about actually creating a page for you guys to access that has this code in it. I probably will, in fact, so that you can copy and paste it into yours, and then you can play with it as you see fit. So at this point, if we were to go into our plugin, and we were to refresh our plugin, okay, sorry guys, I had a small issue right there because I accidentally left out my ending squiggly bracket to end the class. Okay, so I refreshed, and now we would have that custom post type inside and accessible to our WordPress. So I'm just going to wrap this one up right there because the reason why is I wanted to keep this one short, just talking about custom post types. I didn't want to get into the extreme of writing it out longhand because it's going to take forever for me to go through and explain each and every one of these things, and I tried to really quickly because it is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, the labels, like I said, are obviously the labels, and the arguments, you can actually just look this straight up on custom post types, and I will include that in the description as well, because you don't have to have all these. Many of these are actually optional, and so yours can be much simpler than this. Like I said, I was just trying to show an example of a really full arguments array for creating a custom post type. So quick review, we were able to call the loader, add an action on initialization to the plugin admin, and call the function. We created that function inside of our admin file in front of our class, admin class. Down at the bottom, we just created a public function with the same name, and then we had it create the labels array, the arguments array, and register the post type. Okay, and like I said, I will include a copy of this block of code right here so that you can play around with it, and then you can call it the same way. And then that way you can do it on your own time instead of watching a 45-minute video on me long form writing out code. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Like I said, subscribe, will you, if you're not already? And I'll see you guys in the next one where we're actually going to take this information and actually create a custom post. And then if we have enough time in that video, we're actually going to use the YouTube information and create custom metadata for those posts that we can then call to later. And this opens a wide door for you to be able to do basically whatever you want with custom posts and plugin stuff. So anyway, I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.